and welcome to another episode of Unstoppable Overcomers. I'm your host, Dorothy Odell. Tonight, I have the distinct pleasure, before I have our stuff going up there, I have the distinct pleasure of bringing another one of our amazing authors from this book that just launched, bringing new words to your body conversation. And here she is, Dr. Christy Matusiak. Welcome to the show.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Dorothy.
Absolutely. Now, if you've been a fan of the show for a while, I'm sure you've seen Christy on here a couple times, Dr. Christy on here a couple times. But I wanted her to come back because this is a whole new topic that we're going to be talking about tonight. And I actually got a chance to read your chapter today. I had not read it until before today. I will admit that because, I went online and got a Kindle copy today. Waiting for mine to come in. And I thought, wow, I had never heard any of that. But we're not going to get too deep into that because we want people to buy it so that they can read it themselves. But for people who have never been on the show before, tell everybody a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Sure. So once again, thanks for having me tonight. I'm a holistic chiropractor, and most people think of chiropractors as those types of doctors that crack your neck and snap your spine and all those kinds of things. And when I say the word holistic, I mean I'm looking at the entire human as part of a whole picture, right? And so if somebody comes in with back pain, that might be because they're eating or drinking something that's not appropriate for their body. It could mean that they are thinking something and causing stress in their system just from those types of thoughts. Or it could mean that they fell down the stairs and have some physical structural trauma to deal with. Either way, human beings are three-dimensional, and my goal with every human that comes into my office is to get to know the person behind whatever their diagnosis might be so that we can really heal the root cause as opposed to just putting band-aids over the small issues.
Love that. A lot of people just put a band-aid on it and then wonder why it either comes back around or the symptoms get worse. And actually I've been a patient of Dr. Christie's, oh my gosh, 3 years, I think 3 years now, something like that, 3-4 years. And absolutely amazing. Even though I'm here in Canada and she's there in Illinois, we managed to make it happen. And truly blessed to have you as my doctor, because I know that there's a lot of things that, I'm just grew up in the old school of the MD just telling you what to do and your parents just go along with it. And I'm really second guessing a lot of different things in life, and my health being one of them, and trying to do more of, not trying, but doing more of the holistic approach instead of just, medicine for this, medicine for that. Until, I was a big baby with that rash last year, but that's a whole other thing. When you get stung by 100 mosquitoes all at one time, trust me.
And again, Western medicine and antibiotics and all those types of medical interventions exist for a purpose. They just don't always need to be the first line of defense. But thank God that they are there for when people need them, because that's what they're for. Oftentimes, I just feel like they're overutilized when there's more natural, holistic approaches one could take first with less side effects, less, negative impact to the body.
100%. What made you decide to go into being a holistic chiropractor?
Have you never heard that story before?
I might have, but maybe the guests haven't. I don't really remember if I have.
Short version of it is I was kind of always this weird, holistically minded person before it was a fad. Like, I actually looked back at old college essays that I wrote, in my admissions process, and I used the word holistic back then, thinking that I was going to go into exercise physiology or something of that nature. But I always was fascinated by the nature and nurture, and so the mind, body, spirit connection before it was trendy. And I majored in biology and psychology, and people used to look at me and were like, why would you put biology and psychology together? That doesn't make any sense. And to me, it was very common sense. The times hadn't caught up with where my brain was going at the time. But now it's very mainstream. Now, if you mention the fact that stress can impact your body, stress can impact your blood pressure, stress can impact your hormones, it's like, duh, of course it does. Just wasn't always that way. I was the kid in college that if I got sick, I would just load up on vitamin C and I was done in 2 days, where my roommate would make fun of me and she'd be sick for a week or more. So that was kind of always a part of who I was, and then life took me to where I am now.
You know, it's funny that you said that because I'm the one that will pop the vitamin C, and I, knock on wood somewhere, have not been sick. I've been sick once in the last 5 years. And my husband and stepson, my husband used to get pneumonia every January
Hmm.
for the first 4 years that I knew him. Thank God he didn't get it last year, now that I'm thinking about it. But then I've changed a lot of different things in the house without them even knowing. More to the holistic, from laundry soap to regular hand soap to everything like that. And I got some vitamin C that's like a powder drink that you just put in. And like, here, if you're, as a matter of fact, my stepson will come home to our house and he'll be like, do you have any of that stuff left, Dorothy? I want to bring some to my mom's house because I really feel like I have a cold coming on. I'm like, yep, here you go.
Brilliant, Dorothy. I'm so thrilled to hear that. It really doesn't take much, but a lot of times those little changes add up to a huge difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And now that I think about it, Brady, who's used to be historically sick all the time, especially when I first met him, has not been really sick, like really, really sick in about 2.5 years.
Nice. Nice
Huh?
work.
See? A night I just thought of that.
It
What?
works.
It works. It does work. Wow. Okay. So we're here. I'm not going to say mostly, but we're here to
Mostly.
talk about the book. It was a labor of love for 2 years. And so, what made you decide to be all in on being an author in this anthology?
So much. First off, I mean, of course, all of us, I feel like, owe so much to Jen Zahari for putting it all together. She was, like you said in your last interview, she was the brains and the ringleader behind all of it. And, it's such an important mission and passion of hers. And I've gone through plenty of my own body image conversation stuff over the years, and quite frankly, still do. I mean, I don't really feel like that stuff ever completely goes away. It
Right.
just changes as we evolve and grow and keep working on our stuff.
Right.
But it was an important conversation, an important topic to me too. And as soon as she brought it up, I was like, hell yes, I'm in. it's it's one that I wish I had started working through those conversations with myself and my own body much earlier in my life.
Mhm.
I think I could have saved myself a lot of grief.
Mhm.
Um, but everything happens in divine timing. And so I do believe that as things come together as they're supposed to, I was certainly just thrilled to be a part of it and honored to
Right.
share my story.
Now, do you see in your with your practice, what do you see that commonly a lot in a lot of your clients?
It'd be hard for me to put a percentage, but I would easily say 90% of the women, at least, that I see. Men too, to a certain degree. I have a couple male patients right now who are struggling with different body image issues. They don't always come in with that as their primary complaint, but in the work that I do, and as we talk through all different aspects of their health, from
Mhm.
chemical, emotional, physical, mental, all of the things, it comes out. And
Right.
we cycle through, what was your mother's pregnancy life with you? And what was, growing up like with your siblings? Did you get along? Like, did you have any traumas growing up through school? And these things always come out like, oh, well, I was bullied when I was a kid, or, tragically, if there, was any sexual assault or trauma, right? So
Mhm.
these things come up a lot, and they leave scars. There's a book, and I can never remember to pronounce the author's name, but it's Your Body Keeps the Score. And so in the work that I do, our body holds on to physical trauma or emotional trauma or whatever type of trauma it might be defined as,
Mhm.
and will later show up or manifest in the body as physical disease unless we deal with it.
Right.
And that's one of the main things that I work on in my practice. But yes, as a long-winded answer to your question, I absolutely see this every day in my office. There's almost always a conversation about people's bodies, especially when they're coming in for something health related.
Right.
Anxiety comes on quite frequently when people are talking about their health and how to improve their health.
Right. It's funny because I never really thought about that. I never grew up with that theory until I met you and Jen, where energetically thinking and different symptoms we get due to past traumas in our lives and things like that, and then they manifest into diseases. And I never even really thought of that until I met you guys. Quite honestly, in my household, you had a headache, you take an aspirin. It's probably due to either the weather or somebody ticking you off that day or whatever the reason being, and never really taking a deep look at that until I really met you ladies. And that now I'm just like, okay, let's gotta figure this out, right? And going back and doing the work. And what I mean by that for, uh, a lot of it is childhood trauma, and really taking a look at that and letting the shit go, quite frankly.
Yeah. I mean, and trauma is a term that's very highly used now, but it can really mean anything. Like it can be, it's whatever is defined as trauma to that individual. So it could be something seemingly simple, but if it really shook that person's, safety and security buttons and subconscious, we hold on to things. And Louise Hay was actually the woman that was brilliant and kind of like a pioneer in that field, really making some connections between the metaphysical and the physical body and its responses to things. So it certainly comes up. And in one of the systems that I use, neuroemotional technique in my office, going back to the body image conversation, it happens a lot. Especially I have women who come in for weight loss, as one of their primary goals. And I will literally kind of ask their body. The way that the system works is we do a lot of muscle testing, and we basically prompt the person with statements to make sure that their body is congruent with whatever it is. And so you should theoretically, if I do a muscle test for you, you should theoretically test strong to my name is Dorothy. If you said my name is Kimberly, you should weaken, right? Because that's your core identity. Once those things are balanced, we can basically use your body as biofeedback machine to see what you're congruent with. And when someone's struggling with weight loss, we can say, I am okay at my ideal body weight. And if they weaken with that, well, then of course they're not going to get there because there's some subconscious block from getting there. Just as equally important, though, is we'll also test, I'm okay at my current body weight. And people often weaken to that too, because if you're not okay, even just okay, not even saying thrilled with or whatever, if you're not even just at balance with where you are currently, I say we can't really go to where we want to be. We have to really be okay and really love ourselves where we are. That's just my opinion.
Wow.
Not saying that's easy.
Interesting. That brings up a whole new thing later. For later. I know you've done some muscle testing on me for different things over the years, and so that's quite. And it's funny because I occasionally will do that just to test myself. Anyways, yeah. So that's kind of cool. Interesting.
Right.
Alrighty, and so in writing your chapter, was that like how was that for you? Was that therapeutic? Did that bring up a lot of different stuff for you, or what was your journey in that?
It brought up a lot, yes, and interesting because we've already shared that it's taken us a little time to really get this together. And my first draft of the chapter, 2 years ago, it didn't bring up a lot for me. I was honored to share my story. It was kind of nice and kind of cool, and I was like, "Yep, this is me." And then when we were really gearing up to do it, I'm like, "Okay, it's been 2 years. Let me revisit the chapter." And I read it, and I almost wanted to delete the entire thing and start over, Dorothy. It really struck me like this isn't me anymore. I need to be more real, because even with as real as I was, like none of it was a lie. It's not like I was hiding behind anything, but it wasn't deep enough. And in going through some of my own, like each level that we get to, another layer of armor comes off, right? And so I read my chapter again. I said, okay, I need to add some things to it. I added a few things to it and said, nope, that's not right. And when I finally started putting in some of the stuff that I was currently dealing with and currently trying to heal through, oh man, it knocked me on my ass. I hope it's okay that I say that, but
yeah,
it brought up so much emotion. for a good week, maybe 2 weeks, that I really had to take some time and process. And of course, it was healthy and exactly what I needed. All those kind, bringing those things out is absolutely healing and cathartic. Once again, it doesn't always make it feel easy. And I mean, one of the things that I kind of added, and I don't even remember because I haven't read my chapter since submitting it now. But one of the things that I feel like I brought up a little bit is just how much growing up the way that I did and seeing bodies the way that I did and being around people who saw bodies the way they did, that I then learned how to see bodies as either good or bad, or comparatively speaking. As much as I was negatively impacted by that, I also contribute to it. And that's still a hard lesson for me. The hardest lesson was really looking at myself in the mirror and saying, you suck just as much as these other people because you're judging people too. And that sucks. And that's really, just being totally frank, that's really hard to swallow. That I grew up, looking at other people and comparing them and saying, okay, this body's better than mine, but my body's better than this person's. And that's not acceptable. It's not who I want to be. And it's really hard to change the narrative. At least it can be really hard to change the narrative until you're consciously aware of it and intentionally doing things to change it.
Right. Like I said, I read your book today and I was just like, wow, I didn't know that. And just like there was a lot there that was much needed to be said, because there's a lot of people I'm sure that can relate to your chapter. And you're right. I will say one thing. We learn different things from our parents and from our elders. I mean, I grew up with a grandmother that was, I think her heaviest was close to 350. My godmother was over 450 pounds. My mom had always been heavy. I think my mom's heaviest was 250. And my grandfather, my mom's dad, passed away at 62 of a massive heart attack, and that man had to have been 300 pounds. So, I mean, growing up with that, it was just like, wow, that was heavy on my side. Now, my dad's side they were overweight too, but not as heavy as my mom's side. And so it was, you would think growing up with that I would think it was normal, but then society tells you that that's not. And, they can be very cruel with that. So what advice would you say to a teenager that is struggling with her body image?
If I could go back and tell myself, these kinds of things, I mean, it's hard for teens because they're going through so much growth and change, and like their bodies are literally changing by the minute. And they've got not only kids in their ear telling them things, but now we've got social media that's in their face all the time. There's just no getting away from it. But what I would say to those people right now is, I don't care how hard it feels. I don't care how long it takes. Find a way to love yourself. I mean, I can't remember how old I was and what part of my journey I was in with this, but I had read something, and I think I put this in my chapter. I'd read a quote that said, you can look at yourself in the mirror every day and say, this is where I am today. I could be better. I could be worse, but this represents my life. And empower yourself with, the fact that let's just accept where we are. Like I said, with the muscle testing concept, we have to accept where we are and who we are before we can make any changes to what we want to be. And it doesn't make where you are now bad. It doesn't make where you want to be better. It just, the worst thing is, of course, like how that phrase was written. But the sentiment is, it doesn't matter where you are now. Just love on yourself now, because it's really important. It's the only way that you're going to grow and heal.
I love that you said that. If you don't accept yourself the way you are now, you can never move past that. And that was one of my biggest lessons that I learned over the last couple of years. Being on every diet known to man. But the thing of it is, yeah, I could lose 60 pounds, but then I gain it back just like that. Right. And I've done it before. I've done it several times. And then something with self-sabotage, because I didn't accept myself the way I was in any of it. Yep. There's always an inner conversation around it, how I looked and things like that. So I'm glad you said that, because 100% true.
Yeah. And the yo-yo thing is so common, and it often happens because just of that aspect. We don't accept ourselves. And so even if we drop the weight, we still don't accept ourselves. It's like you can, and I found this so interesting. I don't even think I put this in my chapter, but I do vision boards every year. And of course, one of my goals on my vision board is always to do something with my body and to keep pursuing it. I'm not even going to bother saying weight loss anymore. I'm just going to say always grow and keep moving towards more healthy lifestyles. And um, every now and then I've tried for years now to find a picture of my ideal body and put it on my vision board with my face. Do you know I can't do it? I can't find someone else's body that I feel comfortable with. So to me, that tells me, well, guess what? Your ideal body type is within you. And it doesn't look like any model on a magazine. It doesn't look like your neighbors. I can admire other people and what they look like and who they are. But really, at the end of the day, I don't want to be anybody else. And that was a life-changing awareness and perspective that came to me within the last couple of years.
Right. That's awesome. That's a great awareness.
Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't mean that I'm like fully happy exactly where I'm at right now. Like I said, there's always room for growth and improvement. And especially doing what I do, like health and, what your health is my number one always. And especially with anybody who's in any kind of body conversation, whether it's weight loss, weight gain, healing from some trauma, physical deformities, whatever it might be, I always say start with health, mental, emotional, physical, chemical, like all of that must be balanced before we can move forward.
That's awesome. Thank you for sharing that, because it, again, before I met you, I would never have thought those terms. It was, it hadn't been what you were eating or what you didn't eat or things like that. That was always the narrative back then, or, you not getting enough exercise, calories in, calories out, all that other bullshit.
Nothing makes me more irritated when people subscribe to it's all about calories. It's like, okay, so you're telling me if you eat 1,000 calories of chocolate cake every day, but you're in a calorie deficit, you're going to lose weight and you're going to be healthy? No, I don't think that's going to work, because our bodies metabolize and assimilate 1,000 calories of chocolate cake very differently than they would digest and assimilate 1,000 calories of chicken and broccoli, right? I think any logical human can see that difference.
Absolutely. 100%. Sorry, I'm just looking at this one question that I have. What is the one thing that you would want people to know about having different body conversations?
When you say having different body conversations, you mean like changing their body conversation to something more empowering?
Yes.
At least, I mean, I feel like some may argue that it doesn't have to be hard, but I've found in my experience and my journey that it doesn't just come overnight. It does take intentional effort. And while it doesn't have to be quote unquote hard, it does take time. And when you've been stuck in a story for a long time, it's not typically just like a light switch. And so be kind to yourself on the journey and just put one foot in front of the other day after day. And then of course surround yourself with people who are going to support you on that journey too. Because I've found, having a tribe of people either going through the same thing or having gone through the same thing is so helpful.
100%. 100%. Sorry, I just thought of a really great question and like slipping through my head. I'm like, what is with this? What is the one thing? I know. What is the one thing that you want people to get out of your chapter?
Oh, that's a really great question. It's a hard question to answer. I mean, when I think about my chapter and I shared what I shared, and like I literally just put my heart on the line and shared all of my experiences. Like my experiences were somebody kind of in the middle of the road. So like you shared about your family. I have some distant cousins and some distant family members who are rather on the larger side, like over probably 200-300 pounds. I mean, my highest was probably 230 at one point though. But even so, I was always really active. I was always, I played volleyball through high school and everything. And my body conversation was always looking at myself and seeing myself differently than I really was. Like in high school growing up, I would never have been classified as obese. I was probably overweight, but that's also because I just wasn't a stick. Like throughout high school and college, I think my top size was around a size 14, which really in the big picture of things is not obese. It's not even plus size. But to me, that was astronomically huge because the people that I was aspiring to be and the people that I hung out with were, zero size and twos. And if I wasn't skinny, then I was by definition fat. And so in order to answer your question, I feel like that was one of the biggest pieces that I had to learn was stop putting labels on yourself. Like you're just you are not defined by the size on your pants. You're not defined by the number on that scale. You're defined by who you are and like who your soul is and how you treat people and how you treat yourself and what you're out to create in the world. Like really at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
Right. Now, would you say that how you are with your boys, because I know you're a mom of three boys, would you say that they have any body conversations going on?
Actually, that's a really great question. And I would say yes. So I was very, very intentional. And this does not mean any disrespect to my mom. I love my mom. I adore her. And she's taught me a lot over the years. And she was always in a body conversation when I was growing up. And I internalized a lot of her self-talk as my own, as she was always on a diet. And growing up with that and wanting desperately to have my children have a different experience, I've always been very intentional about how I spoke about myself in front of them. So if I was going to the gym, if I was eating healthy, if there was something I was cutting out of my diet, I did it for health. I didn't do it because I wasn't happy with my body. If they would see me putting even makeup on in the mirror and they'd say, "Mommy, why do you wear makeup?" I didn't say because I want to be prettier. Screw that. I'm already pretty.
Right.
I just because I like it. Right. And so I was very mindful about the words that I used to talk about myself in front of the boys.
Right.
And they still hear things from other places. And, I think there's been times that, because kids are kids and my youngest will like grab my arm and like play with my tricep fat or something. And he'll go, "Mommy, why is all this fat here?" And it'll crawl under my skin and I'll have a visceral response to it because let's face it, we're human. And that kind of talk sometimes is triggering. And I have to go through the conversation of like, everybody has fat. It's a normal part of having a human body is we all have skin, we all have muscles, we all have fat. It's just different parts of our bodies.
Right.
And that's not really nice to say to people because some people can find that hurtful. And I've tried desperately to handle it in the right way. I don't know if I have handled it in the right way. But all of my kids are pretty slender, so they don't have the conversations in the same way that I did. But my oldest is on the smaller side for his age. He's also the youngest in his class. And so it doesn't help that he's a late bloomer. He's on the smaller side and he's the youngest. And so he's literally sometimes like a foot shorter than kids in his grade. He just started high school. And I have heard from him that he's starting to feel a little inferior or weak or not as capable or competent because of his size. And it breaks my heart because just because it's a different conversation than I had growing up does not mean that it's not as real. And I know he's got to be hurting on a different level. And he doesn't talk about it as much as I did with friends and that sort of thing. And maybe that's okay. Maybe that's because he doesn't need to and he's handling it differently than me because God knows he is a stronger kid than I was probably at his age. But I know those kinds of things impact kids all the time. And, I think we've talked about this before, that those body conversations impact men and women differently, typically speaking. And I can see that he's in it, and it's just we have to be patient, and your body's going to change, and everyone's body is different, and that's okay. And yeah.
And it's funny because, well, I have a stepson, and some of the things that have gone through my head lately and within the last couple of years, because, I really had to take a good hard look because there have been times I've been open about, struggling with the way I had looked at that particular moment. And now that I think back of it, I'm like, oh crap, what now? Now that he sees that, and he sees, I know his mom talks about it at her house too, and I'm like, okay, so we need to change this conversation, and be open and okay to be having that conversation if it comes up, right?
Yes.
And it's not the most easiest conversation to have, and God forbid, I know I never had any of those conversations with my parents. um, you know, uh, I was different and never talked to my parents about a whole lot. Kept everything to myself, and I think that was the other layer, right? It was just like layer and layer and layer of different hurts and not dealing with it. And now I got to deal with it at the age of 48 while going through pre-menopause. It's a wonderful thing.
Fun. Yeah. And Dorothy, you said something really, really important that I'm learning really now. Like I said, I was really mindful and intentional about not saying certain things in front of them. While I think that was the best approach that I could have taken at the time with the knowledge that I had, I wish I would have had some of those conversations, because they're going to hear them. They're going to know that they exist. And I took the approach of like pretending they didn't exist. I was like, nope, we're just going to pretend we're blind to all these conversations. And I'm going to pretend that I never had any issues with my body. And I'm just happy and confident all the time. And that's not real. And so it's happened within the last year that I'm like, no, especially as these things start to come up, and they hear things from their friends and they say things, and then I get triggered and I need to respond to them and say, look, this is not an appropriate or kind thing to say. And if I just sat there and hid behind this like weight, body image, blindness curtain, they're not going to learn a healthy way to deal with those conversations within themselves or within other people. And so I have, especially when my son, I was so grateful that he shared that conversation with me a few months ago. And it really struck me like, okay, we need to talk about this more, not less.
Right. And I think that's, the body conversation, the mental health conversation, all those conversations we need to be having with our children. Is it uncomfortable? Yes. But I mean, it needs to happen, because more and more, the mental health crisis is not just for adults; it's for children. It's in the child mode too. I just one of my Facebook friends just posted that her 17-year-old completed suicide, and I'm like, what the world? Like, I felt so bad, and I was just like, what in the world would this little girl be going through? And to just want to leave, right? And I'm thinking, with adults, the pressures that we have, making sure the bills are paid, making sure the kids are fed, making sure everybody's okay. If you have older parents, taking care of them as well. But I couldn't really wrap my head, and she's not the first child that I know of that has done this. I had dated somebody 15 years ago. His 15-year-old niece completed suicide when we were together. And so it's just like these conversations, and with her, it was a body conversation about acne. Kids were bullying her, and it was horrible. And she just couldn't take it anymore. And so that is a body conversation that needs to stop. We really, really, I mean, her family did get her the help that she needed, but when you don't particularly tell the truth to your therapist, the therapist doesn't know any different.
Right.
And kids are smart. Kids are really freaking smart. So they'll figure out a way to get around the loophole. So that body conversation, unfortunately, did not end well. So even if by hearing this show, one child is helped from that, I think it would make the world a difference.
Yeah, I love that you said that. And I mean, I'll be frank, I really do believe that a lot, I would say even probably, I would wager a guess that the grand majority of people have experienced some sort of suicidal ideation in their life, whether that's in their teen years or adult years or wherever. I certainly have. And I remember it very strongly. Around 13 was like one of my peaks. And I didn't tell anybody about that. That was between me and my diary in the bed, in my privacy of my own bedroom, and nobody knew about it. And by any stretch of the imagination, nobody would have had any clue that I was struggling with those thoughts.
Right.
By anyone else's perspective, I was a happy-go-lucky, you know, volleyball playing, normal 13-year-old kid. And I think so many of us have those conversations, and a lot of it is from our own dialogue, but a lot of it comes from the dialogue that we've accepted as our own from other people and society and our culture, and then of course the people who are closest to us too.
Right. Right. Acceptance. That's all everybody wants, right? They just want acceptance and love. And so I think if we were kinder to ourselves first and then to other people, the world would be a lot better place.
Yeah, changing that one person through one book at a time.
One book at a time. That's right, 100%. And I think that's probably one of the major things that brought us all together. Like the one thing that we all have in common is we want to make impact. The mission is to change the world. For every single one of us that is an author in this book. For those of you that are just tuning in, we are talking about this amazing book right here, Bringing New Words to Your Body Conversation. It is on Amazon. And actually, the link to purchase that book is right here. So get your copy today. It did make number 7 on the top 100 list on its first day out. So that was awesome. And so we did reach Amazon bestseller list that night. And so it's still teetering between, we're still on the top 100 anyways. So that's pretty cool, I think. And so it was just, but it's not really being about a bestseller. The thing of it is to get these books into the hands of people that really need it. And that's why we did this project, right? Was to help the one.
Yeah. Yes, exactly. And like I was alluding to earlier, especially, it doesn't have to, it's not always just about the weight, it's not just about your size, and nobody, like, in my journey, in my story, in my timeline, nobody would have, I shouldn't say nobody, but I would say most people would not have labeled me as a fat kid. But it didn't matter. It's sometimes little things that are said in passing that stick in your brain that you heard either incorrectly or the intention wasn't there. It doesn't matter. It still sticks in the way that you've given it meaning. And I get it. And for anybody who's in that position currently, it's we do have the power to change it. It just, once again, it takes time.
100%. And it's funny because I don't know whether you saw a light bulb go off in my head earlier. I was writing down something. As you were talking earlier, I had a memory come up from my childhood. And I wasn't going to say anything on the show, but what the heck. I'm an open book, really. I've said a lot more. I don't think there's anything anybody doesn't know about me between any of the episodes that I've been on. And I can remember my dad saying, you'll never be your big bones, so you'll never you'll never get small. I remember my dad saying that to me. Meanwhile, the whole reason, well, not the whole reason, but I used to be very super skinny, super, super skinny, and I wouldn't eat. And so they took me to the doctor. My doctor gave me something, and then I hadn't been able to stop eating since then. And I want the antidote to whatever the hell he gave me 40 some odd years ago. Anyways, that being said, and it was always a struggle. I can remember always being on some kind of diet growing up. My mom the same way. And I remember vividly that coming out of my dad's mouth. And I just remembered that just in this episode. So, some of those things we bury and, maybe to wanting to forget. But just because someone said something to you doesn't mean that you have to take it off.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that was one of the things I mentioned through my chapter, and I won't even go into all the little details of all that, but I mentioned year after year throughout my life, what things I took on and what I heard and then what I made it mean and what I held on to. Whereas people would say really positive and beautiful things to me too. At least I assume they did. I think they did. But I don't remember any of that stuff. I latched on and held on to all the negative stuff. And that was my choice. Although we're not really taught that. I mean, I know you and Jen talked about that a lot, and that's one of Jen's major missions, right? Is like, we don't have to own anybody else's stuff about us. And
you even just said it to her, like her. You seriously?
I've heard her say it a lot.
That was her voice, like right there. Holy shit, that's freaky. Anyway, sorry.
I've heard her say it millions of times, and it's just so powerful and so important. And it's one of those things that we're not taught, and I don't even know how to teach it. Like, I wouldn't even know to be honest, like, I wish that I have taught my boys that concept, and I try, and the word try, I don't know if I'm succeeding at it because I don't know the first thing about how to go about that.
Well, you're an amazing mom, and I know that firsthand. I've seen you with your boys live and in person. And, let's just be real. We're all just doing the best that we can. And in my opinion, we're all fucked up anyways, and we're going to all need therapy at some point.
Pretty true.
We're just doing the best that we can. Our parents are just doing the best that they can. Their parents were just doing the best that they can. And if I look at my lineage, I won't go into the stories, but like if I look at how my grandfather grew up compared to how my dad grew up, compared to how we grew up, there's definitely improvement. But we're all, and now I'm not putting this out there, I'm having some fun with these words, but we all have our things to bear, right? We all have things that we could work on and be improved. That's what I mean by fucked up. Not literally, people. So I don't want anybody shouting.
No hate.
No hate mail here, but what I'm saying is we all have different things that we can improve on, that we could, let go of, that we could do things differently, is what I meant by that.
Right.
And, I think everybody should see a therapist at one point in time or another.
Absolutely. I mean, I believe the stigma of it has gone away somewhat. Like back when I was growing up, like you only saw a shrink if you were crazy and you were looked down upon from it. I really believe that stigma has gone away considerably, that most people have normalized therapy as just, a safe way to clear your mind and your soul of things that are weighing you down, literally and figuratively, right? And as part of the work that I do in my office, obviously on the emotional side of things, but while it doesn't have that same stigma like it did, it still comes with it cross to bear, so to speak.
Right. 100%. But we're here to help those people and to change the narrative and bring new words into our body conversation. And like you said earlier, which comes from the amazing Jen Zahari, there, we do not have to take what other people say on. Like, that's their opinion. And their opinion is probably biased and based on something that they heard or saw somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so that's on them, and that's really not on us.
Yeah.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
I will say, I'm actually going to throw myself a small bone of acknowledgement here, because in all the years that I've known Jen and I've heard her say that, I think it's finally sinking in a little bit. And there are times that, like, okay, let's face it, I've got 3 boys, they fight, they argue, they poke fun at each other, they hit those little buttons and stuff. And I can remember many times where I'm sitting there consoling one of them because one of the other ones said something hurtful to them. And I have been able to sit there and just look at them and say, do you believe that? Like, if somebody called you stupid, do you believe that you're stupid? No. Then who cares? Let it go. Like, just because somebody says something about you doesn't mean you have to take it on. And having that conversation with them, that sometimes helps. Sometimes they're still crying, but then why did they say it? But it has to be true because they said. And we're starting those things little by little. Once again, I don't know if I'm doing it quote unquote right, but we're one step at a time.
There's a reason why we've had that said 3 times in here, because now I get the same thing with my stepson. Kids are cruel, especially on the playground, and he'll come home very upset. And so that's going to be my new line. Do you believe it? And you don't have to take on what they say. So thank you. Yeah. That's the reason why we said it 3 times.
Yeah. Oh, believe me, I think I've heard it said way more than 3 times before it stuck.
But, you know, and as a step parent, you don't want to step into it. And the same thing, like I've been bullied. I know what it's like. You know, I cringe when I hear somebody else tell their kid to just suck it up. Like that pisses me off, to no end. Have the conversation, you know, and let them know that they're loved, they're wanted, and that they matter. And you know, it's just I think I've heard that suck it up phrase in so many different things, working with veterans, working with men and their vulnerability and things like that, and it kills them slowly. It kills them.
Yeah. I'm really glad you brought up the bullying concept, because you're absolutely right. Kids can be cruel. I mean, adults can be cruel too, but kids, they really hit some nasty spots sometimes, maybe intentionally, maybe not intentionally sometimes. But there's this video, and I'll put this in the comments if I can find
Okay.
the link for us at some point, because
Sure.
I think it was a really powerful video that I saw, and I've shown it to all my kids. It's this guy talking about how to quote unquote win against a bully, and he talks about the fact that, you know, all bullying is a power differential. All that person wants is for them to feel big and for you to feel small. And if they say nasty things to you and they put you down and you just keep getting smaller and smaller and smaller, that makes them feel like they win. And that's
Right.
it. And so the only thing you have to do is just be irrelevant, or be not let, basically hear their words and deflect it and say, that's nice.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry you feel that way. Cool, whatever. My opinion of myself, and this is almost a quote because I've watched this video so many times, so showing it to my kids, it's like, your opinion of me does not define who I am, you know, and I can be happy and joyful regardless of how you feel about me. And the bully then kind of looks back and goes, okay. Like, they don't know what to do with that. A bully doesn't know what to do with somebody who's self-assured and confident and doesn't put up with someone else's crap. And that's just, it was such a great video, and I really think it's like a 7-minute video or something. So anybody who has kids out there who are struggling not just with the body conversation but any kind of bullying conversation, I think it's really great watch.
Perfect. We'll definitely make sure we get that
Yeah.
that in there, especially in the show notes. Well, now we're a little bit past the time, but now's the time we bring up our amazing roving reporter, Miss Kimberly Genovese. Welcome to the show.
I'm still muted. Not anymore.
Not anymore.
No.
Welcome back.
Oh my gosh, what an incredible show tonight. It's funny, especially in the last minutes of the show. Like the whole show, I'm so excited for moms and for kids to have access to the show. It's gonna like really change their lives. I gotta tell you, ladies, man, you like put the icing on the cake in the last 5 minutes with the bullying conversation. And all I kept hearing from Spirit is, I want all my children to hear this. So we're all grown up, like, you know, I'm a 59 4-year-old, right? Like we're all just kids. And definitely in God's kingdom, right? We're all God's kids. And all I could hear is like every human on the planet needs to see that bullying video, Dr. Christy.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
I mean, I'm like excited to like I knew this show would be great for moms and kids, right? And now it's like, oh no, leave it to you, wonderful women powerhouses, to like crescendo it and go like, no, this show's for everybody, every child on the planet. So Way to go. Really great. So guess where I am? Go ahead, guess.
Guess where you are?
Yeah, I'm the roving reporter. Where am I?
Oh, that's right. Where are you? Where in the world is Kimberly Jen? You remember what show I'm referencing, right? That's totally dating myself.
No, but I'm kind of excited to hear what it is.
Oh,
what
now
is
I'm
it?
embarrassed. Carmen
No.
Diego. It was like some, back when I was growing up, it was like this woman, it was a social studies, like educational, like
oh my God, you got to get it for me.
I will. It was like, where in the world is Carmen Sandiego? And you would go through all these like hints and clues and things, and you'd have to figure out where in the world she was.
You have to get me the show because I've never heard of it before. This is so great.
I'm roving
at it, by the way. Dr. Christie's world is where I'm roving.
I'm not great with geography, so I really sucked at it. So I'm going to suck at. Let me see. Are you in the United States? Can we at least help me narrow it down? Okay.
I am. Good answer. Good question.
Okay.
You got 3 questions, and then you get the.
Oh.
See, D, we're upgrading the fundamentals and roving.
There we go.
My roving reporterness.
Perfect.
Are you in the Midwest?
I am. Ooh, 2 questions. You got one more.
Oh, one more. Are you north of
Oh, she's good.
Southern Illinois?
Am I north of? Kind of. I think so. And I don't know, Dorothy. Am I north of Southern Illinois?
I know where you're at, but I don't know if that's north, south, or wherever the hell you're at.
I
don't know.
I know. I'm gonna say yes. I'm gonna say yes. Yes.
I'm gonna say you're in Iowa.
Good job. Look at see, not too shabby. Good job. Yes, I am. I want to put this out there to the Unstoppable Overcomers community as a huge shout out to the community and a thank you. I came here because my aunt, who raised me like a mama, and to Dorothy's point, Dr. Christy, I've seen you as a mom. You're a great mom.
Thank you.
You're a great mom. Like, really get that. And anyway, I came to Iowa to support my aunt in hospice, and we created a miracle. She got kicked out of hospice. Doesn't normally happen, right? But in this community, in the angels that I get to be with and live with day by day, it's a normal occurring. Miracles are a normal occurring. So I just want to do that shout out to everybody in this community, because this community is a huge player in the miracles that I get to produce in the world. So yeah, it's hilarious. She got healthy and she got kicked out. So I'm thrilled to report that as the roving reporter. So go ahead, Christy, take your drink there. Lubricate yourself so you can share with us your fundamentals.
All right. So
Dorothy's going to lubricate as well. Here we go.
all right. So on that note, all right. So my basic fundamentals all have the same thing in mind. It's all about care. And so my number one is care for self. Self-care gets thrown around a lot. But I mean, in one of the books that I wrote, I've been in several books as a contributing author, but I wrote Coordinating the Chaos Through Birth and Burnout for any moms, specifically in that newly postpartum stage, trying to keep their kids healthy and their self, sane and healthy in the process. And I've often told people my most important chapter in that book is all about self-care. It's cliche, but you have to take care of yourself. You can't pour from an empty cup. And so as far as I'm concerned, as far as one of my fundamentals, right, it's my number one fundamental is take care of me. That means I get up, I exercise, I put good fuel in my body, I drink good water, I meditate, I do everything that I possibly can to make sure I'm as balanced as I possibly can be each and every day, so that I can be there for my family, my patients, my friends, and other people, right? So fundamental number one is self-care, as cliche as it is.
Great. Number two
is care for others. And so in my practice, I love caring for my patients. I care for them as if they are my own family, my flesh and blood. I obviously do care for my own family and my kids. And I really believe that it's part of our, at least my soul's journey in this life, is to be there in support of other people and helping them achieve their goals, whether that's health related or personal development related or whatever. Like, I'm somebody who just always wants to be there for others. And so number one, I take care of myself so that I can do that. And number two, I'm there for others in their journey to support them and care for them however they want to be cared for. And then number three is going out and just caring for the world, right? And so I think we have to start with our number one. And so it's like we keep getting bigger and bigger with the fundamentals. It's like you have to start with number one as fundamental, then you go to your inner circle, and then you go to the outer circle. And that's when you can have the quote unquote most impact, I think. But at the same time, I don't ever underestimate the impact that we can make in these conversations every day. Like you said, Dorothy, if one person hears this, then they hear one little nugget and pass it on to their friend. And that's a ripple effect that takes on, the entire world. So.
Amen. Well, that was wealthy, wise, wonderful, and the 3 W's. And winning squared. No, to the third power. Winning to the third power. Dr. Christy's fundamentals are winning to the third power. And truly, in my life's journey, y'all don't have to read another book or take another class. I invite you to take on Dr. Christy's 3 fundamentals, and you will have a wonderful, fun, fantastic life. And if you get tripped up, call Dr. Christy. She's the bomb.
Thank you. And
You're
I would
welcome.
even say, I'll add to, especially the second 2 fundamentals, I really also believe that it's through helping others that we learn more about ourselves too in the process. Like,
Well,
I can't tell you how many times in a patient encounter, someone says something, I'm there supporting them, and I go, oh, look at this. This helps me in something in my life too, right? Just because we're constantly having impacts, and, you know, energy is contagious, and it always has that impact.
Yeah, well, Dr. Christy, wouldn't you agree that, you know, that's what we're here for, is to contribute to each other. Like, that's actually what we're here. The experience of being contribution,
Absolutely.
both receiving and giving
100%.
harmoniously, engaged, living our best lives side by side.
By moment.
Right? Yeah.
That was a Kimberly, isn't it? Euphemism.
Yep. So, yeah. So brilliant, really brilliant. And thank you so much for being on the show tonight. And thank you for sharing your amazing fundamentals, keeping people healthy and happy and wise. Dorothy, back to you.
Wow. So that was an awesome fundamental section. Thank you, ladies. Thank you, Dr. Christy, for coming on and sharing. I would just want to bring this amazing, and I don't want to cover Kimberly yet, but I'm just going to put this up here. The cover of our book, Bringing New Words to Your Body Conversation, is out on Amazon, and you can get your copy today just by going to amzn.to/4ERT7PJ. Get your copy today. Promise you that there are so many nuggets in there, and it's absolutely incredible. So get your copy today, and definitely it will. I know it's going to help everybody. There's not just one person that it's going to help out there. But Dr. Christy, where can people reach you if they want to get a hold of you?
Well, you've got my little website scrolling on the bottom there. So that's my website, elevatehealthandhealing.com. And they can reach me directly via my email, which I know you'll have in the notes and everything. And then I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok. I have a YouTube channel. So pretty much anywhere that you can stalk me, it exists.
Yes, you got to go check out Dr. Christy Cares on her YouTube channel. Absolutely freaking amazing. Lots of sweet nuggets over there. Love every segment over there. So you got to go check that out. Subscribe, share with your tribe. Can't say enough about that. I love it. There's a couple of episodes that I watch on repeat. So definitely go over there and check that out. But thank you so much for coming on. And thank you, Kimberly, for your generous contribution to the fundamentals. Any last words, ladies, before we wrap this up?
You want a real last words?
Yes.
Can I this whole show and this entire conversation is all about vulnerability and being real, yes. Right?
Yeah.
I'm finishing this show in the moment of thinking, was I good enough? And as far as like my chapter and all the things that that book stands for, it's that conversation right there, is stopping that heady conversation, because of course we're good enough. There's never a question.
Well, here's the thing here's my invitation. Stop trying to stop it. It's not going to stop. Like the humanness is the humanness, the mechanism that is the human vessel has reactions. It has thought reactions and it has emotional reactions, and they're just reactions. It's you go to the doctor and the doctor hits your knee and your foot punches out. You don't get upset when your foot punches out. It's a reaction. So my invitation is everybody just stop trying to resist that these things come up. Yeah. They come up. That's what they do. We want them to come up. If they come up, we're alive. We're alive. And to your point, Dr. Christy, because your fundamentals are what they are, of course I'm not good enough is going to come up because you're that passionate. You're that passionate about people loving on people.
Right.
So it's really just a question that you get to answer and say, excuse me, world, fuck yeah, I'm good enough. Thanks for asking. Fuck yeah. Thank you. Thank you for asking.
So
okay? It's an opportunity to self-acknowledge yourself.
Why is Dorothy's laughing now? Either way, I thought that it was worth sharing and just being really.
It is. I'm so glad you did.
These things come in, like you said, it's part of the human experience to have these things come in, even when you've done all the work. Yeah. They happen, and we acknowledge it and move on. So, thank you.
Give ourselves grace. Acknowledge it. Give ourselves grace, and say, "Fuck yeah, I'm dirty." Because that's where things happen. Fuck yeah.
You remember that the next time it comes up. Seriously, I'm not kidding.
I'll do
that's
it.
That's going to be my new saying instead of what do I normally say? What do I normally say? Live in the dream. Instead of saying live in the dream. Fuck yeah. Okay.
That's right. That's right. That is right. Hey, just see, Dr. Christy is brilliant. Dr. Christy is a true doctor of many things. In this particular moment, you're the doctor of love. And what I mean by that, Dr. Christy, is love conquers everything. And you are the doctor of love. For reals. I couldn't be more lit up like a Christmas tree that you brought up what you brought up. Because again, it's now we can have our movement of unstoppable overcomers running around going, fuck yeah, blank. Right? Whatever it is. Fuck yeah, I'm living the dream.
Oh man. That's gonna live in infamy now. I love it. I love you girls. Thank you so much for having me, and what a way to end.
Mic drop. With that, be unstoppable in all that you do. See you same time, same channel next week. Bye for now.
Love you guys.